Welcome, everyone. We'll start in a few minutes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Latoya Jackson, the Executive Director of the Harlem YMCA, and I'm thrilled to be here with all of you this evening. For the past several years, the Y has been promoting civic participation as a way that people can help strengthen their communities. The 2021 elections will have a tremendous impact on the future of New York City and the Y is committed to helping prepare communities to take part. Trustworthy, nonpartisan information is essential to helping New Yorkers exercise our right to vote. In recent years, primary elections have played a huge role in determining who gets into office in NYC. New York is now using ranked choice voting for many city races in primary and special elections. This year, the primaries will take place on June 22nd, with early voting from June 12th to June 20th. And we want voters to be informed and ready. To tell you all about ranked choice voting, we have Laura Quigg from the Voter Services and Information Committee of the League of Women Voters of the City of New York. Founded in 1919, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization whose purpose is to promote informed and active citizen participation in government. In recent years, the League of Women Voters have partnered with the Y to train Y staff on voter registration and host numerous voter registration drives and get out the vote activities at our branches. Laura, thank you so much for being here. I encourage people to use the Q&A function to submit questions that come up as you listen to Laura's presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Latoya. Thank you to the Y for inviting me. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now and begin the presentation from the start. There we go. There we go. So my name is Laura Quigg, and I am going to talk to you today about ranked choice voting, which is brand new for New York City for this year. As Latoya said, I am with the League of Women Voters of the City of New York, and we work closely with the Y and many other organizations. And people throughout the city of New York. We are nonpartisan. That means that we don't support any political party or candidate. So please don't take anything that I say as being supportive or advocating for any political party, Democrat, Republican, working family, anything, or individual candidate. So let's just launch into it. What is ranked choice voting? Well, in most elections, in the elections that you're used to dealing with, you can only choose one candidate. So that would be single choice voting. So you just get to pick one. With ranked choice voting, that we abbreviate RCV, you rank up to 5 candidates. That's the way we have it in New York City, in order preference. So I'm going to come back to this kind of pretty version of the ballot. And actually, I got a sample ballot about an hour ago. So I get to show you what the primary ballot for the Democratic Party looks like in New York City this year. So I just got a hold of it a little bit ago. So I have a jumpy mouse, sorry. Okay, so it's one of the things that we have come to discover, and we're talking with people, is that even though ranked choice voting is new, it's really just another way of voting. So it's not so fundamentally different. It still is like what, just a slightly different version of casting your same ballot. So for voters, the concept of ranking is intuitive. So I'm a cereal person, so I think of it as like, what cereal do I want when I when I go to the store? So what happens if my first choice, like if Wheaties isn't available, what happens if that's not available? So I can rank the choices of up to 5 in the case of this kind of election, as I go to the grocery store, or if I'm sending somebody else to the grocery store and asking them to purchase for me. Other way of looking at it is, let's say you're with a group of people that are going to share a pizza. Well, you would have your first choice of what kind of pizza that I would want to have to share with my friends. But what if no one wants that one? So let's say I want to have a veggie pizza and no one wants that. They just seriously don't like veggies. What kinds can I absolutely not tolerate? But if you really, really don't want anchovies. So he's like, okay, I'm fine. I can live with cheese. I can live with mushroom, but I don't want anchovies. You can think of that as candidates. Like, what candidate would you absolutely really not be able to tolerate? And what are the ordering of the kind of candidates that you would like in order of your preference? So talk at the top a little bit about the benefits of ranked choice voting without getting too much into it. It does eliminate the need for runoff elections, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But most important is that it gives you more say in who gets elected. And that's because even if your top choice candidate doesn't win, you can still help choose who does, and your preferences are reflected in the outcome. So that's like your vote is your power. In this case, it's not just like one vote for one candidate, but it's all the votes for all the vote rankings for the different candidates. So you don't need to rank all 5 candidates, but we urge you to express your preference and use your votes as fully as possible. Like, one of the concerns is that, like, if people just choose one candidate, and like what happens if that vote just disappears? Well, I shouldn't talk about it. So like, who do you think would do a great job? Who would support what you care most about? Then who would do a good enough job? And then who would you absolutely not want to support? So you want to do what you can to understand and separate out the different candidates for what your preferences are, what you value, what in terms of like how well they would run the city, how well they would do their job, if it's a different job than mayor, like who would be the best city council member, and who has the values and would reflect the issues that you care most about. And obviously, this is a really important election for New York City. And as LaToya said, a lot gets determined at the primary level. More benefits are that ranked choice voting arguably promotes more civility and less negative campaigning. And that's because candidates who are not your top choice still need your support to be ranked as high up on the ballot as they can get. So they need to build coalitions of voters from the beginning. So you would want to, like push them to, like, you want my vote, you want my second choice vote, well, tell me what it is that you're going to do for me. Evaluate how they would respond to, your values, your issues. There's also some evidence that ranked choice voting leads to more diverse and representative elected officials. And that's held true with some of the other places that have used ranked choice voting. So who uses ranked choice voting? So it's used in over 20 cities, including Berkeley and Oakland, California, Cambridge, Massachusetts, St. Paul, now New York City. It's used in states of Maine and Alaska is using it for the first time. Note there that in the United States, New York City is actually the largest population of a place that's using ranked choice voting. So this is like a mighty experiment. And a lot of people are a little bit nervous about it. We want it to work. A lot of other places are watching us because they're interested in ranked choice voting for the kind of benefits that I just described and have come through in the places that use ranked choice voting. A bunch of countries use it, like Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, Malta, Scotland. And there's been a lot of success stories. It does mean, things like this, talking to people, explaining, trying to understand how it works. A lot of people are really cranky about it, to tell you the truth. But it's got a lot of benefits, and we hope that people will go to the trouble to understand it well enough to be able to at least get the basics of, like, how do I cast my ballot? This obviously you can't see. These are all the places that use ranked choice voting throughout the country and the world. It's also used in the Academy Awards. So how did this come to be in New York City? Well, we voted for it as a city back in 2019. It was one of 5 ballot proposals that was on the ballot at that time. So this is November 2019. The city of New York, so the people of New York, passed this overwhelmingly. This was not something that the legislators imposed from above. It was reviewed and researched by the City Charter Commission, which is like our Constitution, and put on the ballot along with another 4 proposals, and it was passed by the people. So it was passed in 2019, and now in 2021, it's the first time that it's being used in New York City. So the elections that will use ranked choice for New York City, it's just New York City. So just think city only, and it's the primary and special local elections for city offices only. So that's mayor, public advocate, comptroller, the borough presidents, so throughout the 5 boroughs, and the city council members. It will not be used in the general election. So that means it's not going to be used in November. So this is something to understand well enough to be able to cast your ballot and decide who you want to vote for and rank for just the primaries, but not for November. So this is a little confusing, but it was something that was decided that this is the only way they could make it work for now. It is not used in federal or state races, and it's not used for the judicial races. So that's for DA and judgeships. I'll show you a little bit how that looks on the ballot. So how do we vote for these offices before? So single choice, that means you just vote for one. Plurality, that means that a candidate could win without getting more than 50%. So a candidate could win with, say, just 42% of the ballots cast for that candidate. And in the case of citywide offices, like for mayor, public advocate, and comptroller, if no candidate got more than 40%, then we go to a runoff. So a runoff means that you go to the polls first, and on regular election day. So if there's no candidate that got more than 40%, then you'd be asked to go back to the polls like 2 weeks later. And so what happens then? Well, it's expensive because you've got to have the polls all open again, and really low turnout. So people don't show up. It also means that people who are living overseas or military ballots often didn't get them in time. So it meant that they really didn't have that right to vote. So with ranked choice voting, it actually eliminates the need for the runoff elections. So that was a lot of the reason why people supported it, is because it saves money. We won't necessarily get that money this time because there's an education campaign, but over time, it does save money not to have these runoff elections. Okay, so now I'll get down to the basics for how it works. So how do you cast your ballot? So this is just the same picture that I had before. This would be a pretty version of a ballot where in this case, there are 5 candidates. The way that we have it in New York City is that we can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference. You don't have to rank 5 candidates. For a lot of offices, maybe you don't have any real clue at all, like you're completely indifferent as to a bunch of candidates, and you can only think of voting for 1, 2, or 3. You can go ahead and cast your ballot that way. There's nothing about the system that says that doesn't work. So you can vote for just 1, you can vote for just 2 or 3 or 4 for any of these, but you get the option of voting for up to 5. So in this case, the person who was casting this ballot wanted B as their top choice. So that's in ranking 1, and then C second, A third, E fourth, and D fifth. So this is actually what the ballot looks like for the Democratic primary. As I said, I just got this. I don't have the Republican primary. There is a Republican primary, so I don't know, I don't have details on that, but there is a Republican primary in many cases. So, but this is what it looks like for this is 2 pages. So this is just the first page. I'll show you the second page in a second. So on the left here, you can see the mayoral candidates. This actually came from our former president, Kathy Gray, who lives in Brooklyn. And so she has the Brooklyn version of it. And in her precinct, Spanish was a common language. So, actually French too. So this ballot was translated into Spanish and French. Okay, no, yeah, classic, that must be French, right? And I don't know my French well enough, sorry. Anyway, so the candidates for mayor are over on the left here, and the candidates were, I guess there was some sort of lottery that determined the order that they were listed. And so they're listed in the rows, and then the ranking that you would give are in the columns. So it's your first choice, second choice, third, fourth, fifth. So we get that for mayor. Also, public advocate. There are 3 candidates, so they don't have fifth. there you can also have write-in candidates. So because there are 3 candidates and the write-in, and so you can see here how the write-ins work. So because there are 4 potential candidates, for the public advocate, you're given up to 4 choices. And then comptroller, there are all the candidates, including write-in, and the same way that it's the ranking that you would give in those columns. This is the second and the third page. So here, as I said, this was Brooklyn, borough presidents, and then council member, and this must be Kathy's council district. And then over on the right, so here, this is for the civil court judge. And so this is what I was talking about, that those offices for the court judges and the DA will not be ranked choice. In this case, this looks like the ballots that you used to see before ranked choice voting. So you're allowed to vote for any 2. That's, pick 2, not rank 2, but just pick 2. So there's no ordering here. And also you can write in 2 candidates. So I was very excited. I added that to the presentation at the last minute. This is what I've had before, which is what the example ballot for the Council District 24 looked like. So there have been 4 special elections that have used ranked choice voting in the city. And those were 2 city council districts in Queens that had races in February, and 2 in the Bronx that had them in March. And this is what the ballot for that first one, which was on February 2nd, looked like. And this ballot was translated into Spanish and Bengali, in addition to being in English. Okay, so now I'm going to go through just 2 ways that you are ways not to cast your ballot. The first one is much, much more important. So in this case, this is giving the multiple candidates the same ranking, and this is called overvoting. So here, this is a person who voted for candidate B and C as their first choice. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's like voting for both Biden and Trump for president. Okay, it just, who you're actually voting for is not clear. If this were to happen, then try and feed the ballot through the scanner would kick it back, and you would have the opportunity, if you're voting in person, to cast a ballot again. So there would be at least some general instructions as to what you have the opportunity to do, but it's you want to understand that this is not a ballot that is valid. So this is not a valid ballot. If you find that if people made a mistake and didn't quite realize what they were doing, then if you see your ballot again and say, like, this doesn't work, then look for this kind of thing to be the problem, is giving a candidate, more than one candidate, the same ranking. Think voting for the same person the old way for, like I said, Biden and Trump, or, de Blasio and Christine Quinn for that same office, for the last mayoral election, that would be. So if you're voting, so if the scanner kicks it back, you would, I'm told you'd have up to 3 times to fix the ballot. Otherwise, you're out of luck. If this ballot is cast absentee, then you want to make sure, if you're voting absentee, to give a contact information, preferably a phone number or an email address, because regular postal mail can be slow. If this was a problem, you're supposed to be given the opportunity to cure it, to recast your ballot correctly. But it's fraught, you know, it's problematic. There could be things that go wrong. And so, you know, you want to try and get it right the first time. And also just always include an email or phone address or phone number. So this is the other way that it's really not a good way to cast a ballot. It's not as it's not as invalidating as the other one. It should not actually be invalidating at all. And this is a person who voted for one candidate using all of their rankings. So this is not necessarily wrong or bad, so to speak, but it means that it's not really using all of the votes that are possible, the rankings that are possible for a candidate. So it's just not fully reflecting the preferences if you have any. Now, if the only candidate that you have any interest in whatsoever is candidate B, then this is the same as voting for just candidate B as the first ranking. So it's not necessarily a deal killer, but you're just doing the same as voting for candidate B as your first ranking. So now I'll go through just a few minutes on how the vote is counted. And I'll keep it a little bit brief here, just not to get too much into the weeds, but it does help to show you like what happens to your individual vote as it goes down the line. So there are two things that can happen if in a ranked choice voting election. This case is when a candidate receives more than 50% of the votes. So if a candidate gets more than 50% of the first choice votes, they win the election. So here, candidate B, and this is a little example with 4 candidates. So candidate B got 54% of the votes. So candidate B wins the election. So this is what happened in that first city council race in Queens in early February. So there were 9 candidates, and there were some write-ins, and James Gennaro won off the bat with more than 50%. He actually got more than 60%, but as long as he had more than 50%, and it's 50% plus 1 vote, then he wins. That candidate wins, and that's the end. So here, this is our first ranked choice voting election, and we were really, really interested in the test case, and it didn't end up being going through the process of doing that runoff part that I'll get into next. So the second race, special council, special election, was in Queens City Council District 31. And here there were 9 candidates and a write-in. And the top candidates didn't get more than 50%. And so the top candidate was Selvina Brooks Powers. She got 38%. And the second was Passage Osina, who got 35%. So they just didn't clear 50%. So in this case, we go to a runoff, and the runoff actually continues all the way until there are only 2 candidates left. So this is the instant runoff part. So these are just unofficial results, but they were waiting. Once those are counted, then we go to the next stage. So these are the actual numbers from this race, where each round, so the candidate with the fewest votes gets eliminated, and we go to the next up in the ranking for those voters. So it went through all the way to the end to round 9, and Selvina Brooks Powers did end up being the winner with more than 50% by round 9. And yet it didn't have to be that way. It could have been possible that Passage Osina overtook her based on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th choices of voters who really wanted the other candidates. There are two other special counsel races that were in Bronx that did go through the same process. This came from the Board of Elections website. So here, Oswald Felice actually ended up winning after like 10 rounds. So the red is the candidate that got the least number of votes, and that gets reallocated to the next ranking on that. And I'll walk through there, but I just thought I'd show you what these other elections look like. And this is the one in the other Bronx district, City Council District 11. So in both these cases, the candidate that had received the most number of votes from the beginning did end up being the winner, but there's no way that that needed to be the case. I'm told that the results that will go through, what we see as election observers are the first choice votes on election day, or after all the votes are counted, and then we see the rounds like after it's all completed. So only after it's all completed. Okay, so I'll just go through a little bit what happens to your individual ballot. So here's the same kind of situation that we had before, which was no candidate getting more than 50% at first in this case. So here, if no candidate gets more than 50%, so we're going to the rounds. So here we are, all the first choice votes are counted. On the left is an example ballot. So this is one voter. So one voter and what that voter wants. So in this example ballot, this person wanted candidate D as their first choice, then C, then B, then A. There are only 4 candidates, so there's no fifth ranking. Across all the candidates and across all the ballots, candidate B got the most at 39%, so that's all the ballots, and D got the least at 12%. So because no candidate got more than 50% of the first choice votes, the counting continues. But each round, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. So in this case, that's candidate D. So for our individual on the left, they really wanted D as their first choice. So for that voter, we go to that voter's next choice candidate. So that's the example ballot on the left. And then across all the ballots on the right, all the votes that went to D as their first choice get reallocated to ABC. So this is this runoff part. So if the candidate that is dropped is not your first choice, then your vote stays with that candidate that received your first choice. But if it's not, then it moves up. So here it is across the whole distributions. So for the vote for example voter goes to C, but for all voters, they get distributed to their second choice candidates. So that 12% gets distributed in this case to ABC. So the 12% that went to D in this schematic, 2% goes to C. So that's from 22% to 24. 6% goes to B, so that's 39 to 45. And 4% goes to A, so that's 27 to 31. So, still no candidate has more than 50%, but also, as I said, in the way that we're doing it in New York City, we actually go to the last 2 candidates. So we just do this again. No candidate got 50%. We got our 1 voter on the left, all the ballots on the right, and these are our new totals. So the process continues until there are only 2 candidates left. So for our 1 candidate, our 1 voter on the left, they wanted C, and C is now getting eliminated because they got the fewest number of votes. And so C gets reallocated to A and B. And finally, we're left with 2 candidates. And the 2 candidates are A and B, and B wins with 58% of the vote. So that's the way that it works. Like, people wonder, like, what happens with my individual ballot. Well, that's I just, that's the reason for showing that. So by this round, B has 58% of the votes, so candidate B wins. So that process continued till there are 2 candidates left. Oh, these are important dates. So that actually concludes, I just tacked these on at the end here because I wasn't sure how much was covered. So I could, we know that the primary is on the 22nd, and there's early voting on the 12th to the 20th, and there's absentee ballots, the same rules that applied in the fall. But other than that, I will stop sharing and I can take questions. I can go back to, I can also share the presentation with people.
I have a question.
Sure.
If I rank 5 candidates, do 5 votes get counted?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. So I'm going to go back to them. If you rank 5 candidates, so let's say, yeah, all your votes will get counted. So let me just go back. I'm going to just, so in this case, if, yeah, 'cause I don't want to use the current Meryl. So if you voted for like these in order, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just say that you voted for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You will definitely get counted. Yes, I guess the answer to the question is yes, because even if you ranked if you ranked the bottom 5, it's the getting reallocated based on your ranking. So if you looked here, a person who voted for Jose Padilla Jr. first would then, if they would get eliminated in that round 3, but then they would go to their second choice. Now, if their second choice was Ariel Rivera Diaz, then they go to the third choice. And so let's say the third choice was Alyssa Crespo. So then that third choice would be in the game. That's like, you want to stay in the game all the way to round 8. And if so you're still there. And then if one of your 4th or 5th choice were Oswald Felice or the other one is Gia Bravo, then your votes count. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a question that just came in. So, there is it seems like a lot of stuff to remember. Will the voting machine let people know if they're making a mistake on their ballot?
The only mistake that, yes, the voting machines will say, if you're voting for 2 candidates for the same rank.
Mm-hmm.
So you think of, in the old way of voting, single choice, it's voting for 2 candidates, period. So so the voting machines will tell you, because the voting machines would look at that and say, I don't know what this person wants. And so because that vote is not clear, then it would have to kick it back.
Okay, that sounds clear. Check, see if there are any more.
Makes sense?
Makes sense. Makes sense. I don't see any more questions. So Laura, thank you for all the information that you shared this evening. And thank you to everyone who have joined for your interest in ranked choice voting. We hope we can count on you to make a voting plan for June and help spread the word to others about ranked choice voting and the importance of the primaries on June 22nd. For more information on ranked choice voting and other voting resources, and to see a recording of this and other webinars, please visit our website, www.ymcanyc.org/event/voting. Again, thank you, Laura, and good night, everyone.
Thank you.